thinking about moving to Sunnyvale, California? Maybe you're moving because of work. Maybe you're wanting to own a single family condo or townhome. I'm going to be going over on a Google map all the things you need to know, including why people choose to live here, what is there to do here, what are some of the best dining options and best dining areas to consider, and last but certainly not least, what does the real estate here look like? My name is Spencer Sue, and in the last 6 years, we have helped over 250 families with their move in the Bay, which is more than most realtors do in their entire life. And I personally have been in the Bay Area for almost 4 decades now. So I know these cities really well, and I want to give you the behind the scenes look as to why people continue to choose to live, want to be in Sunnyvale throughout the many years, and what the future is likely to hold. But first, before we talk about anything real estate related, I want to go over on a Google Maps just a little bit of the layout of Sunnyvale and why things are what they are. So, if you don't live in Sunnyvale, you may work in Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale over time has been this intersection between the big tech giants. So think about this. Google, Alphabet has had always a huge campus in Mountain View. So if you look at the location of Mountain View, it is bordering Sunnyvale. Over time, they have continued to expand. They outgrew their space and they kept pushing more east because there's no real space up north. Palo Alto, there's no room at all. So over time, they expanded east towards Sunnyvale. So hence why in the northern part of Sunnyvale, you have a lot of offices. So you can see a lot of offices and a lot of buildings were originally from like Lockheed Martin, and you can see Amazon is there, Meta is there, Google's cloud campus is there. Juniper has been there for a long time for the Web 1.0 companies, but they have been shrinking their portfolio for a long time now. But these other companies have continued to gobble them up. Now, the other thing that has occurred, not necessarily in the northern part, but actually a little bit south of there, is you have other big companies like LinkedIn and more importantly, Apple. So Apple has outgrown their space in the south of it, which is Cupertino. So they gobble up tons of space there. They would always mark it as this big Apple logo, but they've gobbled a lot of space up there. But as you can see, there isn't too much more space going east, at least the immediate east. But if they went up north, there was quite a bit of commercial real estate space. And that's why you see a little bit south of there, you see all sorts of Apple buildings just kind of spread throughout, right? There's all sorts of buildings all throughout Sunnyvale. So that's why Sunnyvale, relative to the amount of jobs, has been such a desirable area and why it has grown so much in the past. And quite frankly, why it may likely continue to grow really, really well in the future. They're still going through a lot of changes, primarily in their downtown, and we will talk about that momentarily. But outside the job side, what is there? What's going on in these different regions, right? You may have come across Baylands Park or the Twin Creeks Sports Complex if you play like team sports. Sometimes events are held out there. You may go bike riding out in this region. But other than that, there isn't any housing in the part north of 237. There's a few hotels and mostly work spaces, but no real residential. The residential starts here in between this little triangle between 237, between Lawrence and 101. Now, this little pocket here is mostly called the Lakewood area. So like this region here goes a little bit past Lawrence. Now, this region here is actually the most affordable places that you will find when it comes to single family. And it's mainly for two reasons. Number one, the home sizes are smaller. We're going to show that so you can see it very clearly. It's very, very, very common for homes to be between like 1,100 square feet to 1,400 square feet on average. There's a lot of these that also only have one bathroom for their homes. Now, of course, there's many that can ultimately have two bathrooms. You can always add it later, but a lot of them were designed that way. The lot sizes are fine. They're actually 6,000 square foot lots. And prices here, I would say, go up to about 1.5, 1.6. So it's been a very, very, very affordable place for a lot of people to have as their primary home. And this has gone through a lot of changes over time. There is a mobile home park a little bit north here, north of Tasman. So that has been established for a while. But outside that, these are mostly single family homes in this area. Now, as you go south a little bit, between, let's say, 101, and I'm going to break it down to basically El Camino, you're going to see a good mix of a lot of commercial buildings along with housings. You will also see a lot more apartments, especially older apartments, just kind of mixed in these areas. So you have a small golf course, Sunnyvale Municipal Golf Course. You have that on the top left. You have a few LinkedIn buildings here on the edge, basically of Sunnyvale Mountain View, right? So LinkedIn over time, initially they expanded a lot, but over time they actually kind of shrank their footprint, uh, even though they've owned actually some of these buildings. So that's what's been going on with LinkedIn, but they still have quite a bit of buildings still there. And you're just going to get a mix, like I said, of a lot of commercial places. Now, these are not huge towers. I think the tallest tower, the tallest buildings, maybe I want to say like 5 stories or so. They're not really really tall, but they're still quite. They're like basically corporate campuses. And then you have a few kind of single family homes mixed in the middle, and some pretty small parks. Right. We're going to talk a little bit about the housing here. The housing here will range basically I would say maybe the 1.415 to even in this little pocket here to already 2 million. It's a pretty stagnant jump between one region to another. And we haven't even finished that yet. It will get staggering much, much more as we go more south. But here in the middle, you're going to have a few more parks, like let's say between Evelyn, which is pretty much parallel to El Camino Real. So here is where you're going to encounter downtown Sunnyvale, which is Murphy Avenue. Murphy Avenue continues to be going through a lot of changes. It still has many years left of development in terms of more apartments, luxury apartments, but also more potential corporate real estate. The corporate real estate side, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm not sure if they already have tenants or if they're even going to really do anything with that. But the apartment leasing space has been doing just fine. You can find apartments there that are quite expensive, but it's a very prime location. A lot of people live in Sunnyvale. A lot of people make the money. They want to pay high-end rentals, and they do that. You can see Uber has offices and buildings here, even though their HQ is primarily in San Francisco, but they also want to attract the South Bay talent, especially where there's a lot more families down here. So that's why Uber has offices that are walking distance to the downtown. Now, the downtown has changed significantly over time. I want to say initially, I'm not sure what came first. I don't remember if it was the AMC, Whole Foods, or Target, but they kind of all sprung up in the last, let's say, 7-8 years. And over time, they just continue to like really improve the Murphy Avenue historic area. So now you got a Whole Foods, you got a big Target. There's a multi garage building here. So parking is really really easy, even though it's at downtown, and it's I want to say it's free, or at least it's free for more if you're there for more than or if you're there for under 3 hours. And then there's also a supercharging station. So I've been here a lot. I have a Tesla, so it's very very convenient. You'll always be able to find supercharging stations there. They got the AMC going on. Here the parking is crazy tight. This used to be really easy, but now they have actually a lot of construction here on this bottom side. So if you're super lucky, or you go like I guess early afternoon or something, then you'll be able to find parking. But otherwise, you're going to be trying to find parking like in these areas here where they actually have garages. They also have other parking spots depending on when you go. There's a Caltrain. There's also some like underground ones. So there's a lot of parking in this area. So this is a very, very popular destination for a lot of people to go to because it is a downtown. There's lots of restaurants. There are also a good amount of bars, and you have one of the very few nightclubs, Pure Nightclubs. Pure Nightclub has been around there for a long, long time. Pretty much a monopoly. Your alternative is to basically go to Mountain View, or you go to downtown San Jose. So if you're in the South Bay and you still want that lounge nightclub experience, it's there's no other options. So you're gonna go for that. Now the places south of Evelyn also get more expensive. So like this region here, south of Evelyn, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're potentially walkable, as you can see, to either parks or downtown, which is a huge value add. Or number two, the schools are a little bit better. So the schools aren't that great in the northern part, but the schools here in the middle part are about like 6 and 7s. So some families think that feel that's acceptable, so they're okay with that. Others, obviously, they may not, and then they may like to go to better areas. But the schools in general are pretty are good. There's also a good amount of parks here. So I play tennis. Ponderosa Park is a pretty smaller regional park. They have like I think 2 tennis courts or something like that. You got a very very small. I think it's a 9-hole golf course at Sunken Gardens. It's like kind of these par 3 ones, so you can get in and out within 1 or 2 hours. So this whole chunk area has continued to progress very, very well. Here you're going to see all types of home sizes, but 1.6, 1.7, up until I would say mid twos already, right? So that kind of gives you a breakdown of this middle part. Really, this middle part actually also doesn't have very much commercial. The commercial plaza, the commercial locations kind of end north of Evelyn. So you're not going to be having too much road noise or anything like that, or too much just commute traffic, as long as you're kind of staying away from the busy kind of perpendicular routes to the highways. Now, as we go south, you're going to see some notable things. In the southern part of Sunnyvale, I'm going to call it the southern part of Sunnyvale, basically El Camino Real. This is where things get the most premium and, quite frankly, the nicest. A combination of many reasons. Best schools now are in this area. We're going to talk about the school ratings momentarily. Combination of the homes are significantly bigger than even the middle part of Sunnyvale. Here you can easily see lots and lots of homes for over 2,000 square feet. The lot sizes in Sunnyvale aren't like tremendous. I would say you'll be pretty happy, quite frankly, looking at places like 7,000 square foot lots. It's not like extensive lots, but all of these areas are flat. And so there's no, you don't have to worry about like kind of unusable like lot space or anything like that versus other regions that have a lot more cliffs or a lot more hills. Now you can see though, there's a lot of parks, right? I mean, take a look at all the green parks in the southern part alone. So some of the most notable ones is Las Palmas Park, right? Las Palmas Park also has the Sunnyvale Tennis Center. So I've gone there a lot. The tennis center is not open, as in it's not a free public tennis court or tennis facility. You do have to reserve it. And so if you're a resident, you have a little bit of a discount. If you're not, you can still reserve it, but you reserve it by the hour, and they do get booked very quickly. So you better reserve it at least basically. They kind of open up like a week in advance. So you got to reserve it 6 days in advance at least to be able to get kind of the time spot you want. But this is a huge park, great park, lots of things to do. You got a dog park, you got football fields. As I mentioned, you got some really, really nice tennis and pickleball courts. The pickleball courts are also a reserve, but they do have some open play. I forget if it's like Friday evenings or something like that. So Las Palmas is the biggest one, right? But you have some good public parks for tennis and other things like Mango Park. So Mango Park is a good option. They got multiple tennis courts out there. The Anza Park is a good option for a lot of people. You have this kind of you have this private swim and racket club. So in case you didn't want to compete, but you didn't want like all the big amenities like a bay club, you can go to these. There's a few of these swim and racket clubs kind of throughout the South Bay, and then certainly you have other options by going to like the high schools and things like that. A couple of other notable ones that I want to point out is like Sarah Park. There's also Ortega Park. These are also pretty sizable ones. Lots of tennis courts, lots of open fields. A lot of people have like barbecues and picnics here. Like these are all fantastic options and locations. And quite frankly, a lot of people that even live in the northern part may end up going down here instead, just because the parks here are significantly larger. Like for example, most people are not going to Ponderosa Park if they're from out somewhere else, just because the park itself is pretty small, and then you're probably going to be doing mostly street parking versus some of these other ones. They are very, very big parks, so people from all over the region will elect to go there and to exercise or do whatever they want to do in terms of play. So that gives you the breakdown about the lay of the land, right? It's very, very clear, and it's very, very simple when it comes to like why things are what they are. Let me explain a little bit about the school system, as I mentioned before. So when you look at the school system, you look at the elementary schools, you can see very clearly the southern part, south of Sunnyvale, or south of El Camino Real, will have the best schools. You can see where the ratings are at. 6. I mean, there's an occasional 6 here, but quite frankly, most are going to be 7, 8, and 9s. The middle part is what I mentioned, usually like 6 and 7s. The northern parts usually not so good. Now, the middle school is really interesting because you can see, once again, the places south have the better middle school. But there's a little bit of a catch to this. And this is sometimes where things kind of bleed over one another in terms of different school districts from other areas blend into a specific city. So the really big blend, and this is the most southern part of Sunnyvale. So we gave you the breakdown before, right? El Camino Real, south of there is all we're gonna get the best homes. But if you go to the next level, which is south of Fremont Avenue, you will also have even better, the best of the best, right? Because at this point, these go to Cupertino Middle School, right? So this is very, very important, and this is why this most southern part is the most expensive part of Sunnyvale. Now, if you take a look at high school, you can see ultimately they feed into a few main high schools. Homestead is a very, very good high school. Fremont High School, they're both excellent high schools, especially if you're going to be in the southern parts of Fremont, right? So this goes back to what I mentioned. Here are the kind of the regions. Now, quite frankly, Homestead is able to cover a lot of the places even more north, including like this section here, which is still the southern part of Sunnyvale, but even this little region here to the west part along next west of the downtown. So it gives you an idea of the school. So it's not all of Sunnyvale is good or it's bad. It's definitely different tier breakdowns. But at the same time, that is why prices will change drastically as you get to those different sections. All right. So that gives you the breakdown there. Now let's talk about housing. So to give you perspective, as of this recording, which is recorded at basically, let's just say closer to the end of July, the median sales price of a single family home is $2.48 million. Median, Sunnyvale, right? Medium home price. So if you really break it down, let's just look at the places that are more expensive than that. Let's say the places over 3 million, 3 to 4.3 is what has sold in the last 3 months. Where are they? You can see the check boxes. They are, as I brought up, predominantly in the southern part, right? So that gives you the breakdown that I mentioned before. Combination, let's take a look at some of these examples, right? You can see just the sizes of these. And let's just look at the most expensive one as an example. You can see that this home itself is a 6-bed, 5-bath, 2578 square foot on a 12,000 square foot lot. So this lot size is significantly larger than most. And it's like a newer construction build. As you can see, it's just a really, really modern, stunning, beautiful home. So that's an idea of some of the most expensive ones. But you can see like these can be as little as, even at this price, 1982, but it can also be as large as 3,300 square feet. And you can see the lot sizes of these in the southern parts. There are still some at sub 6,000, and then there are still very few that are above 10,000. So anything that's above 10,000 is pretty rare. So you can see this. There's a total of what, five homes out of 38 that are above 10,000 square foot lots. So that is pretty unusual. So you're going to still see a range, I would see, between 7 and 9,000 square feet in terms of lot sizes in that region. So that's that area, which is the most expensive region, the most premium, and the best region, to be fair. Now, if we remove this, let's kind of look at the next tier. Let's say between 3 to 2. Where would those be? So there was 74 homes that sold in the last 3 months between that range. And it goes to show you exactly kind of what I mentioned. The remains, anything south of it, is going to be at least the $2 million mark, right? Most of them, if you take a look at the hovering, the low end may be 2.3, right? 2.3 will be like the cheapest in the southern part. But you also have a few that's sprinkled in the middle now, as I mentioned before, right? So the more south you go, as a recap, the more expensive, the bigger the home, the nicer the home, the better the school districts it is. Now, at the same time, there are also many entry-level ones that can work. As I mentioned before, if your budget is sub 2, you can see a range from the very, very tiny little homes. Look how small these are. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 725 sold for 1.2 as an example, right? So they don't get, that's certainly very, very small. It doesn't get much smaller than that. But you can see the range that goes up to 1.5 here in the northern part, which is the Lakewood. This is kind of what I brought up before. It's a good option for a lot of starters, or actually 1.6. And then the remaining will be kind of in the middle quadrant. So it really depends on your goals, your family life situation, how much space you may need. Like, these are all the single family home options. Now, the good news of Sunnyvale is that you do have townhomes and condos that are there. And you also have some of them that are newer. So take a look at this. In the last 3 months, there was 83 homes that have sold. All right, let's kind of look between the townhome and condo mix. So if you look at, let's say, the nicer townhomes, let's just look at the top 25 in terms of price. the townhomes between 1.6 to 1.95. You're going to see a few of them are quite newer, right? So these are built, let's say, in the last 10 years. Let's just take a look at one of these pictures. Inside is going to be really, really nice, right? Newer townhomes. So these are kind of the traditional new ones that you see now, tri-level townhomes, open kind of kitchen, uh, dining room, living room configuration and layout, towards in the middle section of the home. But you can see the breakdown where they're at. They're kind of spread all over, and that's the interesting part about this, because it's not like the single family search as what we saw before, where the single family was very, very clear. If you have a certain price range, you're going to be hanging around specific areas. But if you wanted to balance a lower budget yet still be in a very, very good school district of Sunnyvale, you could elect to go for townhomes and condos. Because take a look at this. These are the ones that are over 1.6, and they're really scattered, right? Like there's some of these here up north, 1.6, 1.8, and this is, you can buy a single family home for less than that. But people are still buying townhomes there, by the way, right? You have certain communities that are all townhomes, so people have been focusing on some of those. But if you have a budget under 1.6, you have a lot of places to choose from. So let's just say you have a budget under 1.6. Let's say your budget between 1.6 and 1.3. Like, take a look at this. You still have a lot of options, as I mentioned before. You can get quite frankly, a single family in the same row. You still have a lot of options in the middle part, which is fairly close to downtown. And then you still have options, right, in the southern part of Sunnyvale, which is the best parts of Sunnyvale. Now, to be fair, most of the ones that started getting cheaper, like under this amount, will be like basically like condo flat style, or they're really small. So there are actually some really, really small, like 2 bed, one bath, 1.5 bath kind of layouts. But then they can get into the best school district. So some people do make that exchange of getting themselves in, getting into a really, really, really good public school. For, quite frankly, as you can see, it could be under 1.6, and all these are remaining in red. These are under 1.3. So it's a very, very good option for people to consider as their first place if their budget does not allow anything higher, and they can save the money from not going to private schools, which typically cost 30,000, 40,000 plus. So what did you think? Was this helpful of a deep dive? I went really deep with Sunnyvale. Quite frankly, it's also because Sunnyvale is one of my favorite cities to be. I'm still super bullish about the potential, but also the opportunities. But for that reason, it is one of the most competitive cities that you will find in all of the Bay Area. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in the city or any cities in the Bay Area, my team goes all the way to San Francisco, down all the way to Hollister, back all the way to Brentwood. We have a huge coverage because at the end of the day, depending on what your budget and your goals are, whether it's school related, getting your first place, doing a trade up, downsizing, my team has been able to help all of you with their moves. So if this is helpful, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and let's set up a strategy call. My contact details are below. We can schedule a time anytime to go over a game plan for you and then help you accomplish your next move. See you next time. Bye now.